Welcome, everybody, to the Table Rush Masterclass, where we get back to the marketing and sales basics to help entrepreneurs like you grow your business to $1 million and beyond. And today I am very excited to introduce to you Raphy, and this last name's great. It's almost as good as mine, Raphy Feolino, and Sarah, who's hiding in the background. Well, welcome, Raphy.
What's up, Misha? Thanks for having me here. And thanks for not butchering my name. Like, that's good. Like, yes, both my, like, the first name and the last name, somebody gets it all mixed up. I don't know how. It's kind of pretty, like, straightforward, but you got it. And I really enjoyed this interview. So thank you for having me on.
Indeed. It's so good to have you. Quick, we have some roots together, and that we're in this high-end coaching program. It's called the 2 Club X. It's a significant financial investment, which I love, and I'm proud to invest in myself. I know you have as well. It's with Russell Brunson, and I've just got to watch your journey through this for the last year and a half. And so my goal here today is just to talk about what you do and the amazing work you're doing right now. This will be our part 1 of the interview. So if that's cool, and you have what's called Holy Couples Coaching, and anybody can check it out in the link below, journeytomarriage.com. It's a great website. You can schedule a call it's all about bringing spirituality into your marriage, right? And it's got a Christian or Catholic base to it, correct?
Yeah. We primarily work with couples who aren't married, because we see that there's like plenty of marriage enrichment stuff, but like we're trying to figure out like who's helping the people that want to get married, because that's a significant step of your relationship, right? Like you don't just have a good marriage like just because you get married. It's like, what is the foundation that you have to build to have that good marriage? Because the reality is, marriage, when you're in it, man, there's a lot of responsibilities. We just became parents. I mean, like, I would say we're still new to parenting and everything. We have an almost 2-year-old, and we just had a 3-month-old just recently. So it's difficult. Like, I'm glad that we had to like work on relationship before we had to go through these transition points. And that's the gift that we wanted to help other couples, to not come into marriage like being reactive and like trying to figure things out, because in itself it's pretty stressful if you don't know how to really do the basic essential things that unfortunately nobody really teaches us. School doesn't teach us how to communicate and all these things that we teach our couples. So yeah,
fantastic. I love the purpose, a noble cause, right? And I say that with a full open heart. Like, hey, let's help people who are on the path to marriage. Let's set them up for success, right? And I'm looking at your website now, and I think it's awesome. So when everybody's watching here, or you're watching me, and I look over here, it's because I've got another screen and I'm looking at your stuff. So I see we've got this whole before and after, not a framework, but you've got different metrics of before and after, growth area, possible growth area, possible strength area, and then you break it down even into I'm having trouble reading, it got awfully small, but you have like financial relation, right? You've got all these different things, and then I see that you've had success. Like I see we've got Nico and Sam, who their before and after metrics went up dramatically. So you've got a whole system, right? Or Victor and Lainey, you've got a before and after. So quickly tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So that assessment that you see, that's the number 1 marriage and relationship assessment in the world. It's called Prepare and Rich. And cause like, it's kind of hard to tangibly like understand like how you're communicating, like the health of your communication, like how you guys handle finances as a couple, like all these different facets of your life. it's kind of hard to put that into like, are we getting better? Are we getting worse? Like, where are we at? So we wanted to create something where objectively couples can see like, what are the areas they have strong points at, and then what are the areas that they should really focus on growing, especially before coming into marriage, because there's a lot of conversations that we help our couples really dive into that they may not have talked about until they start working with us. Because when they start working with us, we get them to be very intentional about the time that they're putting in their relationship and working with us. So yeah, we have, like, before we actually go through our coaching program, that's like our first initial call. We help them to see objectively what their relationship looked like. Because, you know, couples are like, oh, our relationship is fine. Like, I don't even know why we're doing this thing. Most of the guys are like that. They're like, I don't know why we're doing this. Like, we've known each other for years. Like, we're fine.
Yes.
But they do this assessment and they're like dumbfounded. They're like, really? Like,
wait a minute.
Yeah. So we have one of our couples that we want to talk about. They were actually about to get married like 4 months later, before we actually started working with them. And when we started working with them, we were like, they felt like pretty on tune with everything. And they're like, oh yeah, we're fine. Like, I'm sure everything's good, but we'll try this out. They got their report and they actually ranked the lowest that you can in that assessment. It was like a conflicted couple, right? And they saw that and they're like, oh my gosh, like, we're about to get married in 4 months. And it seems like we're not on the same page. Like, it felt like we were on the same page, but that's what's powerful about like the objectivity of assessments like this. So we were able to do that. They went through the process. We helped uncover a lot of the things that they couldn't see. And that's the power of having a coach. And then after our program, they became a vitalized couple. So what a vitalized couple is, the top rank that you can measure in that assessment. So within just a few months of working with us, they went from the lowest to the highest rank. And they weren't even married. And I think that blows a lot of people's mind as well, because they think like, oh, we should be working on a relationship when we're married. Like, that's when we should be doing it. And it's like, no, like, why wait? You're going to be doing these things throughout your life regardless. Why not learn it so early on in your relationship, so you don't get into those places where you're building these bad habits and all these things? Because that's exactly what I had to experience. Like, I wish I would have known this early on in my dating stages. But I mean, I feel like God has given me that purpose. He put all these challenges in my life so that my wife and I could do this type of work. But yeah.
Fantastic. I want to get to that in a moment, that God has given you this purpose, because I think that's what's so powerful about what you do. It's so much work to create something like this, to create a structure to help people and to bring a message to market, right? And so to have a powerful why. Mm-hmm. We're going to get to that in a minute, but really quick on this. Oh, and I love the idea of a measurable, right? You in such an esoteric space, you've said, here's the measurables that we can look at. And I think they're beautiful. So now I'm looking at them. We've got communication, conflict resolution, partner style and habits, financial management, leisure activities, sexual expectations, family and friends, relationship roles, and the last one is spiritual beliefs. And so obviously, as I just say that, if you can grow your competency or capabilities in those areas with your partner, how powerful is that? Mm-hmm. Especially heading into a marriage, right? Like, super powerful. Yeah. So awesome. Tell me, like how it's a lot of work and it's a lot of pain A lot of growth opportunities. How about that to put something like this together? Like, what was the pain point where you and your wife are like, did you have an experience? And so your relationship was struggling and then you're like, wow, how powerful. Tell me, does that question make sense?
Yeah. So actually it goes even way before my wife. Like when I met my wife, like everything started getting a little bit better. Like I started dating the right way. When I initially met her, we dated the right way and we ended up getting married in just a few months. But before I met her, I was dating all these other women and I didn't know exactly like what the purpose for dating was. So I'd be in these relationships for years and years. And, you know, I'm hearing like people's advice, like, oh yeah, take your time, have fun, go travel and do all these things. And I did. So I spent years of my life dating. I want to talk about this certain individual. I dated this one girl for over 5 years without having like intention or purpose, but because I guess just looking back at it, I just wanted significance. I wanted to be loved. And I thought I was doing all the right things. So it kind of got to a point where I was like, okay, we've been together for like 5 years. Like, what's the next step? Marriage, right? So in my mind, I was like, okay, let me go ahead and propose to her because that's what everybody's doing. Like, again, not really having any purpose or intention. And then
how old are you, quick, at this point? How old are you?
Oh man, I think I was like 24 or 25 when I was engaged before I met my wife. So when this happened, just a few months afterwards, I had a spiritual director as well. And he was the one, as much as I love him to death, like he was very honest with me. As a good director or coach should have been. But when we were engaged and I was kind of like sharing to my spiritual director, like the challenges that we were facing, he helped me to realize how toxic my relationship was that I couldn't really see, which really, it kind of blew my mind because I've been in the relationship for 5 years. So I thought like, you know, like, oh, I think we got this, we're good and we're going to get married, all these things. And then my spiritual director is like, yeah, but you guys are like constantly arguing. Like how you guys are communicating is just not solid for marriage. And like he started just really pointing out the things that I hated him for doing, but I love him at the same time for doing because I got out of a potential future divorce. Like if we were to go into marriage having these same habits and not having that intentionality to work towards these things, like I'm sure that marriage wouldn't have worked out very well. So I got out of that relationship and I realized like, man, there's a lot of things I didn't know about relationships. And I kind of went on this whole journey as a single man, like understanding like, what is my role as a man in a relationship? Like, and I started picking up books like Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. Like, I didn't want to go through that pain again, Misha. Like, it sucked. That was 5 years plus of my life, like going through all this toxicity, not even seeing it, and getting engaged and now having to break that. Like, our families were upset about that. Like, with me, like, they were excited, like, oh, we're getting married. And I had to break that off. I'm like, this sucks. Like, if I'm going to start dating somebody again, like I got to do it the right way. So I started like doing my personal development, reading, really just getting focused in my faith because I felt like there wasn't really a faith foundation in that relationship as well. I was just kind of doing whatever. Yeah, like just through that whole journey of being single and really developing myself, I felt like I was ready to start dating again. And when I met Sarah in Hawaii, I was serving in the military at the time. I met her, and it's funny because when I met her, I was actually discerning to not be married. So I'm a Catholic, and I was actually discerning to become a priest. So in the Catholic traditions, priests don't get married.
Okay.
And so when I met her, I was just like, oh, what a distraction. She is. She must be a distraction. I'm just going to do my thing.
A test.
Yeah. Or a test. Like, oh, thanks God. Like, but I'm gonna stay on the path. But
amazing.
it's crazy when, like, it's funny when you tell God your plans, he has better plans for you. So as much as I was trying to focus on, as much as I was trying to focus on priesthood, there was this growing desire in my heart to want to get to know her. And it just kept growing and growing and growing. And then finally it's like, all right, God, let's try this out. I started dating her, doing it the right way. And really just getting to know her rather than doing all the physical stuff and getting caught up in all that mess, but really just getting to know her soul, like her values, her beliefs. We start having the hard conversations early on in a relationship, which then it gave me the clarity that to be like, just in a few months of dating her, I was like, that's the girl I want to marry for the rest of my life. And I'm like, wow, I found that out in just a few months versus all these other relationships where I was just dating for years and spent like wasting all this time. But I know just looking back, it was like God allowed that for a purpose. And I learned from that, and all the challenges. I'm grateful for all that because this is where we are now. Now we teach the couples to avoid practically what I did and what she did, because she has her own story as well that I'm sure she would, like, she shares as well with our couples. But we both had a similar journey. Like, we both dated just to have fun, and but that's what we do now.
Boy, I love have the hard conversations in the beginning parts of the relationship. How powerful of a thought that is, right? Like let's cut to the chase. And do you have a strategy around that of how to have those conversations?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I remember the first conversation. I mean, I think the first hard conversation, we were like about almost a month into our dating relationship. And I was like, what are your thoughts about pornography? Like, do you watch porn? And it was awkward. Like, I was so terrified to actually ask this question because I've struggled with this in the past as a young adult. Like, I was introduced to pornography when I was like 13, 14 years old. And like, it has transitioned to my adulthood, and it has just rewired my brain into a toxic way, like how I see women, how I see sex and all these things. So I wanted to kind of get to understand her and what she's experienced. And like, I was coming into this conversation, I'm like, oh, this girl's going to break up with me. Like, once I share with her, like, my truth and all that stuff. But what like all these fears that I had actually turned into one of the most fruitful conversations we had. We started talking for like a deep, maybe 2 hours around our struggles, around sexual expectations, especially when it comes to marriage and all these things. And I think all of the things boiled down to creating that safe environment to communicate. Like, I was coming in here, and both of us were coming in here to create a safe environment for us to be vulnerable, not for us to be there to criticize each other, to be like, oh, why do you do that? Like, all these things. And when we came with that attitude of, hey, we're on the same team, let's create this safe environment for us to have this hard conversation that allow us to open up and not have to get into those crazy arguments that we've been in the past. Like, that's the reason why I didn't want to talk about like hard stuff in my past relationships, because whenever that would happen, we would just fight, we would argue, it would get toxic. So again, I wanted to do something differently, and just creating that safe environment was the key. And now, like, whenever we have those, because the hard conversations still happen, but they're not so hard, because we've done it so much throughout our dating, our engagement, and throughout our marriage. Like, the things that are hard for many couples are not very hard for us. Like, we talk about everything, we don't leave anything on the table. And I think it's very valuable, especially in a relationship. Like, you want to be able to share everything with that partner, especially if you see that partner to be with for the rest of your life. Like, you don't want to hold anything back.
I love that. Thank you for that answer. I'm writing down two things, which I want to circle back around. One is, I have a question, and you don't need to answer it now, but I want to address it, which we'll get to, I'm sure, is you can teach or you two with your framework, with your program, with your Holy Couples coaching program. Imagine, I want to ask the audience, can you imagine having the hard conversation with love and having it go well and being a platform for growth and intimacy versus tension and mayhem, right? Like, wow, how amazing is that? Right?
Oh yeah.
But so you're able to teach that, right? How to do that. I'd love that. So I just want to make sure I take a note on that, on the hard conversations. I love how you said things that are hard for other couples are now easy for you and Sarah because you've practiced it, you apply this framework, and I don't know if transcend is the right word, but you've transcended sort of that pain and frustration again to where it's an opportunity for intimacy. And I think that's beautiful. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%. Because both of us, we still have those negative emotions, right? Yeah. We're always, we still will get frustrated, angry, stressed. I mean, we're parents and we're still trying to figure this whole thing out, transitioning from 1 to 2 children. So it's stressful.
You were in the thick of it.
Yeah. And so the tension happens, the frustration happens, but how we go about like using those emotions and really understanding our emotions and communicating our emotions, like those are the keys that allows us to communicate even when we feel like everything's going crazy right now. But again, like without those frameworks, I don't even know where we'd be. It would be terrifying. Like, so yeah.
How amazing is that to have some frameworks to utilize and based in your faith? I just think that is so powerful and amazing. That's beautiful. And what a gift you have to offer in that regard. So you've got this Holy Couples coaching program now, and I'm assuming we've got steps in there. You take people through a process, right? Yeah. And ultimately to become a vitalized couple. And I love that, a vitalized couple. Who doesn't want to be a vitalized couple, right? Yeah, it's beautiful. So tell me about what's the strategy? Tell me the overarching strategy of the Holy Couples coaching program.
Yeah, so the Holy Couples coaching program, because like when we think about relationship experts, we think about like communication and conflict resolution. I think that was like the basis of what I knew about when I was reading a bunch of relationship books. It's always about communication, conflict resolution. But then like Sarah and I were thinking, there's so many other things though that affects a relationship that should be talked about, that they should, as a couple, develop skills around. So as you can see, like our program is not just a communications program or a conflict resolution program. It's like a personal development. Like, let's talk about all the facets because all of these affect the relationship. So let's not leave anything out. Like the number 2 reason why a couple divorces is actually finances. Right. Number 1 is actually communication, like infidelity. And I know there's could be all the different types of reasons why cheating happens and stuff, but a lot of it stems from the connection that a couple has. They don't know, they struggle with sustaining that. And there's like a compromise in their connection where they don't feel safe and they want to find intimacy somewhere else. So like knowing like financial management is like up there why couples divorce. Like we had to create a program where we had to talk about everything and teach all these different things. But the foundation, when we first start off with a couple, we do talk about the communication and resolving conflict. Why? Because all those other things, talking about finances, if you don't know how to communicate about this, you're screwed. Like these are hard things. Like you're going to be talking about debt and all these things. And you don't want to just like strangle, like, what are you doing with your money? Like, I don't know if I want to marry you. Like, no, like we want to teach them how to communicate in a non-judgmental way, in a place where they create that safe conversation so that they could better know and understand their experience, because the reality is, like, in a relationship, like, we have both completely different worldviews, which is beautiful. And we can use those two different worldviews and experiences for an advantage, or we can use it and be like, oh, you're wrong for having to live life that way. Right. And that's one of our big challenges, like, where our couples, they want their partner to be just like them. And so they try to change them and try to like, and we try to help them understand, like, hey, no, you've got to understand that your partner was made by God in his image and likeness. Like, he or she was made unique. So use those and leverage those differences to actually become a strength versus a source of conflict. So that's why we really hone in on how they communicate, how they resolve conflicts, so that when they do talk about finances, when they do talk about sex, when they do talk about family and friends and boundaries and all these things, they have that foundation of how do we communicate about these topics in a healthy manner, and how do we create strategies as a couple to increase and to turn these areas into strengths in our relationship. So yeah, we put them through that whole journey, and then at the end of the program, they get to see, like, we'll show them. Again, it's not their opinion. Like, they could say, oh, my relationship is good, or we can say, like, all the things, like, it's all objective. Through that assessment, it's an objective thing, like how they answer the questions. It actually shows you, like, have you guys improved? Have you guys actually done the work? And the vast majority of our couples, like 97% of our couples who actually do the things that we tell them to do in our program, turn into the Vitalized Couple, which is the highest rank in that assessment. And they're not even married, which blows our minds. Like, these are couples who are dating. These are couples who are engaged, who have already got to the peak of their relationship. And now they're coming into marriage with such momentum, with such a strong foundation. Because I think, like, in the statistics of that assessment, less than 10% of married couples even measure as vitalized. So, I mean, and I think those statistics were really, like, a long time ago. And if you think about relationships now, like, you see the divorce rates, like, they're rising and all these things. So I'm sure that statistic is, like, even smaller. So the fact that we're helping couples that are not married to get to that level of vitalized before even entering into marriage, I think it's powerful. And that's what our program does. We get them to that. And also it helps them to have that now that they're a vitalized couple, especially if they're dating, like, they now have that clarity and confidence to take that next step in the relationship. Because just like me, when we were dating, like, I didn't know, like, I was like, okay, we're dating for years and years, like, when should we do it? And I kind of guessed, and I was like, okay, we've been dating for 5 years, so let's get married. But now when they go through this program as a dating couple, and they get to have the hard conversations, they get to develop their skill sets, like, they come out, like, having so much confidence and be like, hey, like, this is a person that I could grow so much with right now. Like, what would that look like in marriage? And that's what gets them excited to take that next step. And yeah, that's what our couples do. They actually get engaged. like they'll start in our program as a dating couple. And then they would get engaged, like, afterwards. They have that clarity and confidence, like, yeah, I want to marry this person, and I want to serve this person for the rest of my life. And I think that's powerful, because through that process, it could kind of get scary, because marriage is a big commitment, man. Like, it's a lifelong commitment. That's what we believe as Catholics. And I know they've experienced a lot of different things, maybe having divorced household, or there could be a lot of confidence issues. So just being able to provide that for couples is really powerful.
It's extremely powerful. I want to say a couple things. One, just the thought of, imagine your differences as a couple now being your strengths. Like, how powerful is that, right? Like, to, instead of being at conflict and, like, you need to mold to me, now it's like, well, wait a minute. No, these differences are strengths. And I just think that that's beautiful. So thank you for that. And then to get the clarity and confidence to know that you want to get married, like, how powerful is that? I love that thought. right? Like that's amazing. So that's very cool. And then you said, I think, if I heard you right, the clarity and confidence to get married and serve this person for the rest of their lives. Like that's beautiful. So that's a great vision. Thank you.
Yeah.
So you and again, you have couples that you have brought through the process. And again, people can see it at your website at the journeytomarriage.com/coaching. The link will be in the notes here, so everybody check it out. But you can see couples like the before and after of that metric, of that measurable, pre-vitalized, vitalized. And I think that's awesome. But you're having success with this, and then people have literally, if I heard you correctly, go through your program and they're like, we know it's time to get married.
Yeah.
So they take the test, first assessment, right? Like step 1 is take the assessment, coaching call with you and your wife, take the assessment. Step 2, teach communication and resolution tools. Yeah. And then what's step 3? Now strategies. So I heard you say you create strategies. So tell me about that bit. Like the strategies, do you look at the weaknesses or opportunities for growth? That's maybe a better way to say it, along that scale. And so you're like, all right, so tell me about that.
Yeah. So like our program is done in a group. So we have all of our couples go through all the different facets, even if it's a strength area for them, because one of the things that we realize when our couples learn our frameworks, like when you're teaching finances in the perspective of a couple versus like an individual, like they learn so much from that. And handling finances like as a couple, like how do we do this together versus like individually? So yeah, like when they've built that foundation, we teach them more skill-based things that would apply to them as an individual, but also they would understand like how that would actually look like if they would get married. Because there's certain things like that we don't teach, we don't teach them. Like we would teach married couples certain things, and then the people who are still like discerning and trying to figure out they should get married, like we teach them, we kind of like teach them what they need to know right now in their stage of their relationship.
Oh,
right?
Cool.
Yeah. So because it changes, like the conversations kind of change when you're going from dating to engaged to marriage, like the things kind of change. So it's a lot of that. We talk a lot about skill-based things versus theory, because I think one of the things that we hear, because a lot of our couples, they go through the church for resources for like marriage and like pre-marriage enrichment. A lot of the feedback that we hear is like, oh, when I go through these programs, it's very like theory based, like what is marriage, like its importance and the sacredness of marriage, but it doesn't really teach like how do you actually do it. So that's what we teach. We teach like we put the theory that the church provides as what marriage should be, and we actually teach it like how do you actually do it. How do you put that in practice? Like, what are the daily habits? What are the daily things that you should actually be doing to actually prepare yourself for that holy marriage that you actually desire? It's not something that you just do and you're like, oh, okay, we're married and everything's fine. Yeah. It takes work. It takes work.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So do you bring someone new in? Do you start groups at the same time? So you bring together a group of people, and then do you have like 4 modules or 6 modules, or what? How's that work?
Yeah. So we bring the group in, and so we have them go through the modules all together, but then we have like masterminds where we have the couples come together and actually mastermind, because as I'm sure you have experienced being in the mastermind that we're a part of, it's powerful. Like when you have all these different minds and experiences like that you could tap into, it's super powerful. So we're like, why don't we bring this not just in the business space, but in the relationship space? And they're powerful. Like when we have these couples come together and they're all like sharing and learning from each other, teaching their own frameworks to other couples. Like, it's crazy. And a lot of like breakthroughs start to happen. And I think like that's one of our biggest feedback, like that they feel like they're not alone. They're actually around other couples who are crazy like them, that they want to work on the relationship before marriage. And it's just a supportive community where we pray together, where we struggle together, where we share like our successes together. And like, so we do that every week. We do our masterminds and stuff like that. And and they see it. Like we all talk about the same things because they're all going through the program at the same time. So it's really powerful.
Tell me about your favorite success, like your top 2 or 3 favorite couple success stories.
So one of them actually just happened recently. They started off when they were dating, and they had an idea that they wanted to get married, but they just didn't know how to actually get to those next steps. And I remember, because there's also a component where they could actually book a call with us. Like if they want that personal mentorship throughout our program, it's not just a bunch of there's not just a bunch of videos that they watch. Like they could talk to a coach in our programs. So it was like towards the end of our program, they booked a call with us, and they're like, man, I don't know if we should get married. And it was crazy because me and Sarah, like we were seeing their growth, and like they're crushing it. They're contributing to the group. But then like they're having these limiting beliefs. Like, I don't know if we should get married. Like they're having like all these fears, these concerns that were surfacing. And we kind of got to understand the couple and see that they both came from different like family backgrounds. I know one of them had a divorced parents. So she had like a lot of these insecurities, like, oh, I don't know if I should, like, this is scary. And after that call, we helped them to realize like what they're actually doing, like the growth that they've been experiencing for just a few weeks working with us. And they came out of that call just like, there's a different energy about them. You know how that feels like when someone comes to you and they feel like confused, like, I don't know. But then like when something clicks, there's like a different energy. We're like, okay, we're on the right path. We're doing things the right way. And they finish our program just a few months afterwards. They just got engaged. Recently, they just got engaged. They reached out to us like, hey, we did it. Like we're preparing for marriage. And we could like, they had to get out of that mental block, those mental fears. And that's what's so important, like having a mentorship, because if I didn't have my mentors, I probably would have stuck in that relationship, to be honest. Like I probably, before I met Sarah, like I probably would have continued that, probably would have got married, because no one would tell me the honest truth. No one would have told me. And so being able to pray that forward for that couple, like, was really powerful. So I thought that was really powerful. And like what I shared with you with that last couple, where they're 4 months before their wedding date and they were just not on the same page. And they're like, oh shoot, we got to figure this whole thing out. We're about to spend the rest of our lives together. And they put in the work, like, and it got uncomfortable. Like the things that they're talking about, they started to see that there were significant differences, but they chose to use those differences to become strengths. They decided to learn from their family's cultures and created their own culture as a couple. They came out of that program becoming vitalized. They got married and they have their first child now. They're parents. And it's just a joy to see that, like to see them at the altar, to see their transition points and having children and all these things. And I'm like, man, it's so cool to just play a role in that journey. And now she actually reached out to us recently and she was like, you guys inspired me to want to be a life coach. So now she's like, one of our past clients is now looking into becoming a coach because of the impact that we've made on her. And now that she wants to pay that forward to other people. And it just brings us so much joy because it's a ripple effect, right? Misha, like, it's not just us serving these couples and it just staying there, but like having served these couples, they want to teach the things that they're learning from us to other couples because this again is not taught in schools, like, unfortunately. And we were made for relationships. Like, God made us for relationships. He didn't make us to make a bunch of money, like all these things that the world tells us that we have to do. Like, he made us for relationships. So why not master this area of our life and become really good at relationships? And now it's spreading out of our control. So I think that's exciting. That's what we're excited about coming into the new year.
That's beautiful. That's amazing, Raphy.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. I want to encourage everybody watching and listening, of course, go to journeytomarriage.com. Check out Raphy and Sarah's amazing program. There's great content to look at. You can book a call to figure out if it's worth jumping in the program, I suppose, right?
Yeah. We're actually going to be shifting this part of our program. There's going to be a different way, because like with our program, we don't like to take in everybody and anybody. This program is good for specific couples. And now, like, in order for couples to get into our program, they actually have to apply. We actually look through their application, and we have to pre-qualify them before we actually get onto a call with them. And we'll be upfront. Like, if they don't meet the standards of what we're looking for, we would have to like send them away, and we'll give them other resources that they can learn, because there's other like self-paced stuff that we do workshops and stuff. But in our coaching program, there's like an application process, and we're actually we're in the process of revitalizing that, because we wanted to close things up for this year. But starting next year, 2022, we have things that we're ready to start bringing people into our coaching program. And
perfect. It's basically finding out that, hey, these people are the best fit to work with you, spiritually aligned, all aligned in a proper way. And perhaps you can validate, you're ready to do this work. Right. And make sure that, again, it's a good fit. I think that's very smart and helps ensure success for both sides. Right.
Definitely.
Yeah. That's awesome. Cool. By the time people see this, or let's pretend it's 4 years later, go to journeytomarriage.com, fill out the application, and see if you qualify for help.
Yes.
That's amazing. I think that this is a good place to end this part of our interview here. But I did want to make sure, did I miss anything? Was there anything that you were hoping to say or address that you didn't get to say?
No, I felt like that was fun. Yeah, I think that was good. I think you hit a lot you asked the right questions, and I shared a lot about what our program was and all that stuff. So yeah, I think that's good.
Yeah, good. Fantastic. Again, everybody go to journeytomarriage.com and meet Raphy and Sarah, and see if you're ready to become a vitalized couple. And thank you so much for